off of your purchase. All right, what can you say? Another rough ending to the Lions game yesterday. A game of squandered chances in the first half. Another game of not being able to adjust in the third quarter, not able to adjust to adversity after that long pass before halftime. Second guessing, you could do all of that. I'm not going to blame the referee calling Tesla on that interference in the final drive. Detroit should have never been there. They should have had this game well in hand in the first half. Too many squandered chances in the first half when they were moving the ball on Pittsburgh. They couldn't stop the run game in the second half. They looked like Swiss cheese in the second half. All things that make you wonder if Detroit really is that good. Now they're faced with just about an impossible situation to get into the playoffs. And it's obviously a tall task. And of course, that tall task, the Packers have to lose twice. But before the Packers lose twice, the Lions still have to win twice. And that seems to be a tougher task than the Packers losing twice right now. The Lions headed to Minnesota on a short rest on Thursday afternoon, Christmas Day, and they're beat up, but so is everybody in the National Football League. J.J. McCarthy may not play, hurt his hand, but Detroit doesn't have the mojo right now. They've got to go on the road for the final two games, and then they have to go to Chicago. Chicago's playing pretty darn good right now. And, yeah, Green Bay's got to lose twice on top of that. We don't know if Lamar Jackson's going to play for Baltimore against the Packers in Lambeau this coming weekend. So the odds are stacked pretty good. I know there's a chance. I'm not giving up yet. But I got to tell you, the Lions are not looking good. Just a rough outing yesterday against the Steelers. So again, before the Packers lose twice, the Lions got to find some way to win twice. And I'm not confident they're going to be able to do that. I think it's going to be a rough show for the Lions to do that, winning twice. It's going to be very, very close. And, you know, it's too bad because they have squandered a lot of chances. Now, I hear a lot about Dan Campbell and everybody blaming him for kicking the field goal or not kicking the field goal there in their opening possession in the first half. Well, for those of you that think Dan Campbell's going to change his ways and not go for it on fourth down, you haven't watched the Lions enough. He was so successful with it in the beginning of his tenure as the head coach of the Lions. He's not going to change his ways. He's going to go with analytics. Now, yeah, you can look back on it and say if they would have kicked the field goal, all they would have had to do is kick a field goal. This isn't the first game that Detroit has been faced in this situation. And if you think Dan Campbell's going to change his ways and start kicking those field goals or punting on 4th and 4 or not going for it, he's not going to change. This is how he got Detroit to where they were, winning some games, giving us a taste of being a successful football program after decades of futility. There's no way Dan Campbell's going to change. It's not going to happen. He's going to go for it on 4th and goal from the 2 or 4th and 1 from the 35 or 4th and 2 from the 19 or 4th and 1 from his own 40. That's just Dan Campbell. He's going to stick with that. He's not changing for anybody. But I think what Dan Campbell obviously has to do is figure out a way to make those adjustments. Now, I had a question from a family member last night and asked me to bring it up, and I'm going to bring this up, is what is it with these opening possessions in the third quarter of the last couple of games? Now, I understand maybe against the Rams 2 weeks ago or whatever, but yesterday they're able to get the turnover on the Steelers. They've got a 1st and goal from the 2. Those 3 play calls were scary. Now, that opening play call with that, I don't know what you call those swing pass to Jahmyr Gibbs. What the hell was that? And then second down that pass, but you could see that the Steelers were going to bring the house because Detroit's offensive line, they're a sieve right now. And it happened last week. Why have they abandoned the running game? 15 yards rushing, minus 3 yards or 3 yards in the third quarter, not even a first down. It's like the other team makes an adjustment and Detroit doesn't. And that lies squarely on Dan Campbell there. I'm going to give him a little bit of heat for that. But Tim's right. They've got to do something different. Now, I know the Lions have an opportunity still. We just talked about it. They can win out and the Packers lose out and they'll get in. But those chances are slim and none. And Slim's packing his bags to leave town. I'll tell you that much right now. So they've got the short turnaround against Minnesota on Thursday night. We talked about that. We'll see what happens with the Vikings. As crazy as it sounds, the Lions could end up in last place if they lose these last two games and the Vikings win the next two. That's crazy. 3 weeks ago, we're saying, well, the Lions got a really good shot of making the playoffs, a shot to win the division. They could finish in last place. Who would have thought that? And that's really going to put Brad Holmes on the brink. He's teetering with his fan base right now, with giving Detroit a taste of winning. And so, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And you talk about the Bears. The Bears are in the playoffs. They clinched the division with the Lions loss yesterday, or they clinch a playoff spot, rather. Now they can clinch a division with one win or a Packers loss. And Chicago's got an outside shot at the number one seed. I don't think they're going to get it, but they're going to be positioning themselves for probably the 2 seed in the NFC. So they'll get a home game, potentially 2 home games, should they win. They got to get through Detroit, which, I think they're going to do that. I don't see Detroit going into Chicago right now. Chicago's got the mojo. They've got that winning confidence. Such a huge win against Green Bay in magical fashion in overtime. But Chicago right now has got a playoff spot clinched.